fueling the shift of manufacturing to Mexico? Carlos Sugich is a partner at the law firm of Snell and Wilmer. Hi, Carlos.
Hi, Robert.
Thanks for being with me today. Carlos,
Thank you.
which industries are fueling increased manufacturing in Mexico right now?
I think right now, probably the automotive industry is one of the industries that is gaining a lot of new momentum and traffic. Obviously, semiconductors as well, the aerospace industry. And I think I would say those are the top three of the industries driving this nearshoring phenomenon or
Mhm.
manufacturing in Mexico.
Is the US the sole end market for this production? And if not, where else might it be going?
The US is the primary market, but I think over the last 5 years, we've seen in Mexico a lot of new companies coming from Asia, specifically China or India. And some of them are to service their existing clients in the US for companies that are relocating their operations into Mexico, but also to serve their own market. So I think, we've seen a mix, but definitely the US has been the primary market. And, as you know, the largest trading partner with Mexico now.
You mentioned India, so the assumption there is that it's not all coming from China, although I imagine most of it, if a lot of it is. I mean, what's the proportion there?
No, not all coming from China. I think we've seen lately, and I personally represented two companies that are based in India that are trying to set up call centers or other operations in Mexico to continue to service their US-based clients.
Hmm.
So I think it's coming from India. Obviously, the majority is coming from China, other than the US, obviously. But I think India as well. We've seen a lot of foreign investment from India too.
What about the sub-suppliers that support manufacturing? Are they coming along as well? I mean, it's often the case that a manufacturing plant has to be surrounded by so-called supplier campuses around assembly plants. And if that's not happening, where is that stuff coming from?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've seen all the satellite, companies following the main company, as you see in Monterrey, Tesla announcing that manufacturing facility, and all of a sudden, all of their providers, if not most of them, also looking at space around the plant so they can continue to service their client. So it's not just the primary, but I think we see a lot of the satellite or the incidental customers are also trying to secure locations and real estate so they can continue to service their clients.
Are there not, however, still some aspects of manufacturing, especially commodities and raw materials, that must continue to come from China and other parts of Asia? And does that present a potential problem?
I don't think it presents a problem. I think, Mexico has, in addition to the NAFTA or the USMCA agreement, has more than 30 free trade agreements with other countries as a member of WTO. So I don't see that as a problem at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you have those local content rules that determine whether a particular product does qualify under the USMCA, but you don't see that's an issue if they have to get some of that stuff from offshore.
That's correct. So long as
Yeah.
they meet those requirements.
Hmm. Now, we've seen this as an ongoing thing for the last few years, but a lot of things are changing in the economy right now. How are factors such as interest rates, inflation, and for that matter, energy costs as well, affecting the decision to move to Mexico?
I think that uh, the key decision to move to Mexico obviously is going to be the infrastructure. Make
Mhm.
sure that wherever you're locating your new plant has the city or the town has the right infrastructure to your plant. I think the electricity cost definitely is a factor, but I think something that can be overcome. I think the other challenges would be security, and finding the right personnel for the type of product that you or the client would like to manufacture. I think those are kind of the key challenges, but I think the risk far they're not as significant as the potential benefits of having a plant in your back door, right, in your
Mhm. Yeah.
backyard. I should say. And I've heard from clients that I represent that are based in the U.S. And if you think about from a company perspective, it makes economic sense, but also from a CEO perspective, from a VP perspective, from a human perspective, a lot of those folks would rather go to Mexico on a quick, short flight and then come back to the US rather than going to China or going to India. And so I think that is also playing a key factor on relocating closer to home.
You mentioned infrastructure as a big concern or a big issue, at least. A lot of these, my understanding is that a lot of these Mexican maquiladoras or factories are in kind of the northern part of the country and thereby closer to U.S. border. But are there issues in Mexico with regard to infrastructure, the quality of roads, the quality of ports, the quality of airports and rail that might serve as a damper on the nearshoring of this production going forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. I think it is a no-brainer for a lot of companies to relocate to Mexico to be closer to home, to have a culture that is friendly. But the challenge is going to be, is Mexico ready to receive the increase of foreign direct investment and manufacturing plants? And that's going to be the challenge. So if the Mexican government steps up and create this environment for people to start building now, I think the sky is going to be the limit. And then, if Mexico is doing and is getting all this manufacturing, despite the infrastructure challenges that may, pose to some companies, if the Mexican government or the private industry in Mexico get together and invest in water and infrastructure and roads and railroads, I think, the sky is going to be the limit when it comes to nearshoring. Mm-hmm. Now, keep in mind, too, that the existing manufacturing plants are normally located in the U.S.-Mexico border, not only from a supply chain perspective or strategic perspective, but also you have to go back to the original days of the maquila, where it was only authorized in the U.S.-Mexico border. The original maquila program was in the border, was not in central Mexico. And what has happened since then is now this, tax benefit of bringing your products into Mexico, manufacture and ship them back tax-free. Mm-hmm. Now this concept has been taken all over the country. So now if you're a company, you can decide whether you want to be in Mexico City or you want to be in Tijuana or you want to be in Ciudad Juarez.
The whole country, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. But yeah. What's the labor picture in Mexico right now, Carlos, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of labor availability and skills?
I think that's part of why, in my mind, it made a lot of sense to expand this maquila region, if you will, because now if you go to places like Querétaro, Nuevo León, or Monterrey, or Mexico City, you have a pretty vast labor resources in those areas that were no longer available in the border cities. So people are shifting towards the main cities where you can just get not just the workforce, the blue collar work, but also you can get, the professional that are close to universities, the engineers, the IT workers. So I think, labor plays a significant part of what the benefit of doing this nearshoring. And I think that there's, so long as the labor laws stay stable, I think the workforce is not going to be an issue if you can handpick where you're going. And depending on your industry, you can go to Querétaro, of your aerospace, you can go to Ciudad Juarez if you're a different industry.
Yeah. You mentioned security. Fairly or not, Mexico has a reputation for violence and for security problems, not only around the plants, but also for product in transit. What's the situation there?
Yeah, I think, that's one of the challenges, right? To make sure that not just the personnel of the companies that go back and forth between the U.S. or in Mexico feel safe, but also the product and the transportation and everybody. And I think, that's going to be, up to the government to make sure that they crack down on crime and they protect the investors and the companies that are relocating into Mexico. So if you ask me, that's probably that and the infrastructure are the two biggest issues, but I think they can definitely be and easily overcome. You have insecurity anywhere in the world. It's not just Mexico. But I think, the government can do a better job of, making sure that everybody is feeling safe and protected.
How might the outcome of Mexico's 2024 presidential election set for June 2nd affect economic policies and manufacturing activity in Mexico?
Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, it's not just Mexico. As you know, we in the U.S. are having elections in
That's true.
November
Yeah.
this year. So we
Mhm.
are going to see two new presidents in the country. And, like during campaign, as you know, in politics, most people kind of focus on the negative and the trade benefits. In a way, they take a back seat in the political discourse, right? In political debate. But if you ask me, I think if anything is going to, after the campaigns are done, once the two presidents have settled, I think both are going to recognize that huge potential of a complete integration when it comes to nearshoring. The way I look at this, nearshoring is now a complete integration of plants. Remember, back in the day, it was just, I'm going to hire this third party, and this third party is going to manufacture these products for me.
Mhm.
Then it became the shelter company, like, oh, I'm going to use this company, but I don't want to incorporate it in Mexico. So I'm going to use this shelter arrangement where somebody else is going to hire the employees, lease the space, and I'm just going to go down and manufacture. And now I've seen like an actual direct manufacturing or direct operations. And with the political climate between China and the U.S. and the supply chain disruptions after COVID, I think both presidents, once they're settled, they will definitely recognize that the value is here in the region. And the more we can integrate this region, the better it's going to be for everyone in this continent.
Carlos Sugich of Snell and Wilmer, I want to thank you so much for spending the time with me to kind of paint a picture of the situation with regard to nearshoring in Mexico and the future prospects for Mexico as a manufacturing center as well. Thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate the time.